Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jan Clothier of Thinking Stamping and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator from New Zealand. And today I'm going to share with you how I made this card, which I made for the latest inspiration hop with the Stampin Fancy Friday team. If you haven't come across the Stampin Fancy Friday team before, we're a group of past and current Stampin' Up artisan design team members, and I had the incredible privilege of being part of that team in 2020. And so it's really nice to keep in touch with other artisans through this group. Every month we have a theme and we post daily posts on Instagram giving you some examples. And the theme this month is something blue, which is great because I love blue. It's one of my favourite colours. So I was happy to indulge myself in creating something that had lots and lots of blues in it. So I'll be sharing with you how I made that, and we'll start off by what I used. So I'm just going to pop that off to the side, and obviously I used the Notes of Nature stamp set and accompanying bundle. And I love this set. I kind of bought it almost begrudgingly, but oh my word, I'm so glad I did because I've made so many beautiful things with it and I've really, really enjoyed it. So there's that for the hardware, if you like. And the blues that I've chosen to use are Blueberry Bushel, a nice deep blue, a mid blue, Azure Afternoon, and a light blue, Balmy Blue. So those are the three colours we're using. But obviously you could adapt this technique and use any three colours that you like. As I'm going through, if you see anything that you'd like to add to your craft stash and you live in New Zealand, then you're more than welcome to shop with me. And there's a link to my online store in the video description and in the end cards that are going to pop up at the end of this video. Okay, so in terms of paper, well, what have I got? Well, I've got a card base of Blueberry Bushel. It's my standard card base, so it's half of an A4 piece of paper. It's 21 centimetres that way, 14.8 and scored at 10.5. That's my base. Now, for the mat, I have got a piece of silver glimmer paper. Now, the self-adhesive silver glimmer paper is an online exclusives product, so if you look for it in the catalogue, you won't find it. But it is in the online exclusive section of the website, and that is going to be my mat. And now you can see that I've already indulged in a little bit of frugal behaviour, and I have already die cut from that space two of those little dies I've used. It's that little die there. And similarly, I have taken a small piece of Azure Afternoon and I have cut two of those. And then you are going to need a little piece of Blueberry Bushel as well, because I've used that die and I have cut, whoops, two of those. Okay, I've kind of digressed to that, seeing as how you couldn't really ignore the fact that I'd already taken those ones out. So that's my back mat. Now, to put on top of that, I have got another piece which is half a centimetre smaller again. So it is 9.5 by 13.8, and my mat piece, of course, was 10 by 14.3. Now, I have used a piece of shimmery white cardstock because I still have a carefully hoarded stash of it. If you don't have any white shimmery cardstock left, you could equally as well use basic white. You just have to be slightly more careful when we get to adding water. Or you could use watercolour paper. So anything, but 9.5 by 13.8. You also need a little piece of white for the sentiment. Now, I have stamped from Notes of Nature, Today is All About You, but you could use just a little note to say hello. And I've cut that out using the banner from Stylish Shapes. I've used that one. Okay. And I've cut in exactly the same shape a piece of Balmy Blue, and when we get up to it, I'm just going to layer those together for the sentiment. You can see I've also used a little piece of Simply Elegant cord trim and some embellishments, but I'll talk more about that when we get up to that bit. So the main thing about this card is how we transform this piece of shimmery cardstock into this beautiful background. So I'm going to move everything out of my way, because when you're doing messy stuff, the last thing you want is for the messy stuff to get on the stuff that you didn't want to have messy. So I'm going to move my card over there. In fact, I'm moving everything out of range. I'm just putting down a piece of paper, and I'm going to start off with my shimmery cardstock, although you might have basic white or you might have watercolour paper. And I'm just going to start with my Balmy Blue And I'm just simply going to take my blending brush and I'm just going to start blending some balmy blue, some of the lighter blue into the middle. Now it doesn't really matter if it's smudgy and smeary, not really, because you're aiming to, we're going to create a collage piece which is going to be over stamped, and so actually background variation is a good thing. So you don't have to, it's not one of those pieces where you have to be really fussy about getting everything beautifully smooth. So then I'm going to go in with some Azure Afternoon, and you'll notice that I am working more or less from the center, and so I'm going to start adding in some of the other blue around it. Again, there's no real rhyme or reason to it. I'm just going for, if you like, a symphony of blues. And then I'm going to come in with some blueberry bushel. I'm going to be a little more careful about that perhaps, because I do want it around the edges more than anywhere else. So I'm just going to just give it a bit of an overall swoosh. Okay, now that does look a bit messy, but it's fine. It's meant to look a bit like that, because what we're going to do next is we're going to, I was just looking at it and just wondering whether I might go a little heavier on the Azure Afternoon before I move on to the next step. So we'll just get back here and just have a few more swooshes of Azure. Okay, what we're going to do next is the bit which actually makes the biggest difference. So what we're going to take now is just a spritzer. Now if you go heavy-handed with this, you're going to get splotches. Now that's fine, if you get some splotches, doesn't matter. But what I'm actually aiming for is a very fine mist. So I'm going to spritz from quite a distance, and it's a little bit trickier than I'd normally do it, because I'd normally give myself a bit more room. But so I'm switching from a distance, because what I want is, I don't really want big ink droplets. I just want a fine, fine mist, because yes, it's starting to happen. You can see that what's happening is it's just lifting in little mottled swirly bits. This bit over here got a little bit wetter than I'd like, so I'm going to immediately mop that up. But you can see that you're getting just a fine mottling, and that's what I'm after. Okay, now you can leave that to dry naturally, or you can get your heat gun out and give it a zhuzh with the heat gun. Okay, so now that that's dry, and you can see it does have that sort of just slightly mottled effect that I was looking for, we're going to start with a little bit of over stamping. So I've got 3 stamps from the Notes of Nature set. So I've taken this Field Notes set, the Distressed Grid and the Splatter, and I'm going to allocate one of my 3 blues to each of those stamps. So I'm going to use Azure Afternoon, and I'm going to use the Field Notes stamp with that. I mean, if you're doing this, you can do whatever iteration you like. So I'm going to get in there, and I'm trying to keep my head out of the camera, so if I get a little bit crooked, that's just bad. That's just because I didn't get quite overhead of it. But I'm not too bothered about it, because you know, we're just aiming for a general sort of collage effect. So if some things are just a bit wonky, well, they're just a bit wonky. Okay, so I'm just giving in just doing a bit of background with that, and that's colour 1. Then I'm going to come in with my second colour, which is Balmy Blue, and for that I'm going to use the Distressed Grid, and I'm just going to go in there and just anywhere I feel like it. I'm just going to get a bit of a grid. You can put it up any old way you like, because really you're just trying to create that sort of generally distressed look on the background. Okay, and then with my third colour, I'm going to come in with my third stamp, and it's just the blueberry bushel, and we're just going to have a bit of splatter, just for some variety. Okay. Now that's a technique that I often use. I often create a background like that and then add in 3 stamps, 1 in each colour, just to give myself that background. Now we could leave it like that, but in this instance, because I've got the whole kind of, you know, silver vibe going on, I have taken my Wink of Stella, and I'm going to put down even more protection of my work area here, because this can be the very messy part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze, and you can see the Wink of Stella is starting to come down, and then I'm just going to tap it. And what I'm hoping for, oops, I wasn't hoping for that, but it is a kind of unavoidable side effect of doing this, is you sometimes get just big splats where you don't really want them. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, and that's one of the reasons why I had this bit of paper down, but you see when it dries, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get this lovely little silvery splatter happening. So again, you can zap that with your heat gun, or you can just leave it to dry naturally. Now I did just go off and zap that with my heat gun just to speed things up, and you can see it slightly warped the paper, so probably air drying naturally would have been a better solution. However, what you need to do in that instance is use perhaps a little more glue than you normally would, and the other thing, apply a bit more pressure than you normally would, because not only is it slightly warped, but that's a slightly textured surface. So we're going to need to centre that into our space, and then in order to get a good seal, you're actually going to have to just spend a moment or two just pressuring that so that the glue has a good chance of adhering. Right, so now that that's had a chance to adhere, we shall carry on with building our little cluster. Now you can play around with whatever arrangement of bits and pieces you like, but I kind of work on a kind of 180-degree rotation kind of idea when I'm building a cluster. So it's going to go something like that. And then if I've got one going there, I'm going to have one going 180 degrees around the other way, and that usually gives me what I'm looking for. And then of course I'm going to cluster those, I'm going to attach those together, and just to see if I've got the angle right, I'll just, you know, have a little lie down of those as a tester, and then when I'm happy with how the arrangement is, then I'll attach them. Okay, so when you have attached your cluster of pieces as desired, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take some of the Simply Elegant trim and the silver, and tie yourself a big loopy bow, because we're going to pop that in there, and we're going to adjust it to the size that we like. Now I always err on the side of plenty, because I'd rather have too much and trim it than have to waste the whole piece because it was not long enough. And also I just like to have room to play with it, just to make sure that I've got enough. Okay, so about that, and then I'm just going to get a glue dot and attach it to that center. So we'll just attach the glue dot, attach it into the middle, and then we can attach the sentiment over the top. Now there's quite a lot of bulk in the middle there, because there's a bow and there's various bits of foliage, So I'm only going to put dimensionals at the end of my sentiment piece. And then we shall pop that into place. And when we're happy that it's straight, then we can press the dimensionals, because until you press them, you've got some hope of removing them and putting them where you want it. So then we're just going to trim that to a generous swoosh, and we're almost done. The very last thing I'm going to do is going to bring in some other blues, the 2023 to 2025 in colour dots. I've got these lovely boho blue dots, which tone in really nicely. So we shall add in a trio of those. So I think we'll do one. And I love the fact that there's three sizes. A big one, a middle-sized one, and a dinky little one. Okay. So that's almost it. That's almost it for our lovely watercoloured, inky, smooshy, splattery background happy birthday. I will just show you what I've done on the inside, because I'll tell you what you need. I have used a mat of Azure Afternoon 10 by 14.3 with a mat of basic white 9.5 by 13.8, and then I've just done some collage stamping inside of it just to finish it off. And you can see there that because that was on a textured surface, it's just separated a little bit. So again, I'm just going to, after this video finishes, I'm just going to squeeze a tiny bit of glue in there and then just hold it firmly until it stays in place. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed making that card with me today, and I hope you'll give something like it a go yourself. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to contact me and ask them. I'm always happy to answer questions. If you live in New Zealand and you've seen anything you'd like to add to your craft stash, you're more than welcome to shop with me, and there's a link to my online store in the video description below. If you've liked what you've seen and you haven't subscribed, please do so you don't miss anything new that I do. If you haven't looked for Stampin Fancy Friday team on Instagram, have a look, because this month there is a symphony of blue coming from the team. And above all else, everyone, happy stamping.